Novak Djokovic had been disqualified.
Was it the right decision? Absolutely. There was no choice for the officials but to.
If it would have landed anywhere else, we're talking about a few inches.
Djokovic is the best in history, and there is nothing to discuss in that, Rafael Nadal, longtime rival of Novak Djokovic, said. Rafael may be right about how good Novak is, but do you also know that the man can be bad? How much do you even know about him? With sketchy COVID-19 details and a potential political problem,
Novak Djokovic's fate has finally been decided. The world number one has been booted out of Australia.
These are 10 things you didn't know about Novak Djokovic. The first one will shock you. Djokovic almost ended his career. To say that Djokovic loved tennis would be an understatement. That man lived and breathed the sport. Novak, or Noel as his fans fondly call him, began the sport very early at 4 years old and rapidly climbed up the junior ranks. But the odds started to stack against him in his teens as Serbia was at war in the 90s. Somehow, the fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion from the war made him even more determined and his trainers more creative. They helped convert an unused swimming pool into a tennis court where Noel could train. Despite these odds, Noel continued to grow, becoming Europe's top-ranked 14 and under player and led the 16 and under players in Europe before he became a pro in 2003. Now, with all this that the player went through in his early years, why would he just quit? He could have when it was risky. After the French Open Grand Slam tournament, Novak wanted to quit in 2010. The tennis player was leading in that quarterfinal French Open match against Austrian Jürgen Melzer in 2010. Then he slipped up, lost his 2 sets to love, and lost the match. Noel was broken. "This defeat was really difficult for me emotionally," he said. At that point, the tennis was overwhelmed and he became increasingly pressured to win. "I really did not see a reason to keep on playing. I wanted to quit tennis," Noel said. He didn't. The next saw a different Noel, and he won 3 out of the 4 Grand Slams and went on a streak that saw him dominate at the Australian Open. While Djokovic almost quit the sport due to pressure, he knows how to have fun too. Noel has a really goofy side to him. The man enjoys making fun of his opponents and rivals, but not in a sinister manner. The man publicly imitates his opponents and rivals. There was one viral video from the 2007 US Open where he imitated the Russian tennis player Maria Sharapova. He copies Maria by tucking his shirt into shorts and dragging the shorts up to his chest level. Then he did an exaggerated version of how Maria served. Novak wasn't done. The man copied Andre Agassi and did an impression of his longtime Spanish rival Rafael Nadal. He copied how Nadal dressed by tucking in the sleeves of his t-shirt to turn them into tank tops. Then Noel put a tennis ball in his pocket, jumped, and began to run across the court. What a goofball. And there's more. If you like to watch more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more. Noel is a funny guy. Djokovic has got the jokes, and if he isn't mocking other tennis players, he is making snarky comments. After a tennis match in Paris against Hungarian Marton Fucsovics, which he won, the media and audience noticed a peculiar thing. When Djokovic was changing shirts, people saw a small device the size of a cent sitting on his chest. When journalists asked about the device, Djokovic said, "I'm trying to be the Iron Man of tennis." Iron Man in tennis? Be serious, Novak. While he was coy, the Serb did drop additional comments on the device. He claimed it was a piece of nanotechnology that his team used to help him be his best player. Then the man said that the device was the biggest secret of his career and he wouldn't have become who he is as a player without it. Was he joking? Or was he being serious? You could never tell with the guy. According to Forbes, Novak is a champion off the court as much as he is on the court. Noel is the 2023 champion of Forbes' annual highest-paid tennis player earnings list. Forbes estimates that the man has made $38.4 million over the last 12 months, and the money he has made from appearance fees, endorsement deals, merch sales, and licensing. Noel's prize money over the last year is around $13.4 million, and the money from his deals, among others, is estimated at $25 million. Carlos Alcaraz is the closest tennis player to Noel, who has earned around $31.4 million over the last 12 months. Carlos, who beat Novak in the mouthwatering Wimbledon final in July 2023 to win his second Grand Slam title, made $11.4 million on the court and around $20 million off the court. It looks like Carlos has to put more work into surpassing Novak on the court and off it. Carlos should also plot the controversy he wants to be involved in, because Novak has a reputation for quite a few. In 2022, Novak eyed greatness. He wanted to win his 21st Grand Slam men's singles title at the 2022 Australian Open. The opportunity to do so soon closed in his front. The athlete became involved in a COVID-19 controversy, as he didn't want to get a vaccine.
Any vaccination against COVID?
I have not.
Originally, Novak got an exemption to compete despite Australia's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for people entering the country. However, it turned out the athlete wasn't honest about his travel and medical history, which meant he got the exemption on a lie. The tennis player attended a Belgrade basketball game on December 14, 2021. When he got the news that people who attended the event had been infected, the player conducted a test on December 16th and was declared positive the next day after an event where he presented tennis awards to kids. He began diagnosis, and this also meant he had to isolate for 14 days per Serbian laws. Novak didn't. The man went on an interview and photo shoot for L'Equipe and also walked on the streets of Belgrade. When the athlete got to Australia, his agent claimed he hadn't traveled since he had COVID. This led to his exemption from getting a vaccine. When the athlete's activities were revealed, his exemption was revoked and he was to be deported. Novak tried to defend himself, saying he didn't learn of his COVID status until a day after his test, but the medical record showed otherwise. Just like that, Noel became public enemy number 1 and got deported from Australia.
Defending men's champion Novak Djokovic has been deported. Our refusal to be vaccinated against COVID made him a threat to public health.
Eventually, Novak apologized for breaching Serbian regulations of self-isolation, saying he felt obliged to go ahead and conduct the L'Equipe interview. The Serb admitted he was wrong, but the deed had been done. He wouldn't be making history. But come to think of it, he did make history, but not in the way he hoped. Nadal would end up being the one to win the event, beating Djokovic to a 21st Grand Slam. Nadal would eventually also beat Novak at the 2022 French Open and went on to win his 22nd Grand Slam. However, this was the calm before the storm. Novak was planning his revenge, but more on that later. Despite his issue with the COVID controversy, you would think Novak would steer clear of controversies. It now looked like he was hooked on it instead. "I became the villain of the world, which is obviously a terrible position to be in as an athlete," Novak said after the COVID controversy, and you would think that he would be careful from then on. He wasn't. In 2023, the man managed to offend everyone with the statement that the French Minister of Sport, Amélie de Castera, described as not appropriate. So, after the first game of the Roland Garros, which he won against Alexander Kovacevic, the player wrote a comment on the crisis in Kosovo, which the Kosovo Tennis Federation took massive offense at. Of course, the player defended himself, and when asked if he regretted the comment due to the backlash, the Serb commented that he understood that people would disagree, but it was something he believed in. While he may have believed that, we are certain he may not have believed that he would be the current tennis GOAT. Remember in 2022 when the Serb got in trouble with the Australian authorities and couldn't win the 21st Grand Slam he had so much coveted at the Australian Open? Nadal went on to win the competition and beat Djokovic at the French Open, denying him the chance to win a Grand Slam. Novak had his revenge as he went on to win at Wimbledon, bringing his Grand Slams to 21. He was just getting started. The Serb maintained his fine form, beating Stefanos Tsitsipas in the 2023 Australian Open, and he drew with Nadal, both of them having 22 Grand Slams each. Novak then went on to win the French Open and began to lead Nadal by a Grand Slam, and at the US Open, the Serb defeated Medvedev in straight sets, taking his Grand Slam tally to 24, the most of any tennis player. And right now, it looks like the athlete will hold on to his record for a while, as Nadal, his closest competitor, had surgery for an injury and is also contemplating retirement. Exciting, isn't it? Want to find out what's even more exciting? Tennis isn't the only place where Noel gets action from. Hollywood isn't a stranger to bringing in athletes into their films. Football, or soccer's Neymar, had a brief appearance in XXX: The Return of Xander Cage. Novak also made it into Sylvester Stallone's The Expendables 2. Novak played himself in the film and has a scene where he was fighting bad guys with a tennis racket. Unfortunately, the scene didn't make it to the film's final cut. Sure, Novak has been in the center of a few controversies, but that is just a part of who he is. Apart from the sport, the player is passionate about people, especially children. Don't forget, part of the troubles he got into during his COVID issue was going to a children's event in Belgrade. He is that passionate about kids. In 2007, he created the Novak Djokovic Foundation, which focused on educational projects and healthcare for Serbian children. He then became an ambassador for the United Nations International Children's Emergency Relief Fund in Serbia. As much as he loves the kids, the sportsman also loves his country a lot too. In 2014, he gave all of his earnings from the Italian Open, which was hundreds of thousands of dollars, to flood relief in Serbia. The Serb cares a lot, and it was because of how much he cared that he passed a comment about Kosovo, as we mentioned earlier. The tennis player owns a vegan restaurant in Monaco and doesn't eat animal products himself. For some years now, he's been on a strict plant-based diet. You see, in 2010, Igor Sidojevic, a doctor and nutritionist, diagnosed Novak as being allergic to gluten and also has mild asthma. Because of his health, the player gave up eating animal-based foods, and with how he ended up having the most Grand Slams, it's a pretty nice trade. Novak Djokovic is a pretty brilliant tennis player who ended up having the most Grand Slams as of 2023. But could he have had more? Do you think if he had played in the 2022 Australian Open, he would have had even more Grand Slams, or would his tally have remained the same? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support our channel.